Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. We're glad to have you. If you're watching on YouTube, just know that you can go down and actually find a Zoom link so that you could join either now or you can join some other time in Zoom, and you can actually be part of the conversation. So just take that into note. If it's the first time you're in Zoom, let me show you around a little bit and show you what we have here. Now, if you're joining right now, you're probably a participant if you're new. And you'll see that there's a bunch of panelists here, and the panelists have chosen themselves. Now, we would love to invite you to be on a panel. We're really looking for people who, if you're sitting there going, these guys don't know what they're talking about. I know better. I've got better answers. I've been doing this for 20 years. Well, then get on the panel. Come join us. And so, but you have to be here by 6:40. By 6:42, we've started the sound checks, and then nobody allowed in. But we do want you to be here. We open the doors at 6 o'clock. So 6 o'clock is it's a very windy conversation at 6. We might talk about this morning. We were talking about farm tractors. So anyway, but we talk about all kinds of things. Sometimes we jump straight into tech. Sometimes we talk about farms and fiber and all kinds of other things. And so that opens up at 6 o'clock in the morning. At 6:30, we distribute the Discord link. Somewhere between 6:30 and 6:40, we do the Discord link. The Discord link is where another 400 of us or so are talking about this all day. So if you want to be part of Discord, you'll hear us talking about, hey, we're going to take this to Discord. That's what we mean. And if you want a link to that, you have to be here I would be here by 6:30 to make sure that you're here when we post that link. The link only lasts until 7 o'clock. So if you, by the time I've done this announcement, you can't get in. So you have to come back the next day at 6:30 to do it. So that's the Discord link. At 6:40, we start our mic checks. And so those mic checks are really designed to make sure that we move up our quality a little bit all the way across the board. And by then we have now closed the panel, and we're pretty hard about that now. So you do have to be here by 6:40 to be part of the panel. We would love to have you if you feel like you have something to contribute, but you do have to be on time. And then at 7 o'clock, we go ahead and start with Q&A. The Q&A is really that's all we do for the first hour. So 7 to 8 is all Q&A. You'll see Q&A over here. There's a link at the bottom of your screen. When you put Q&A in, make sure that it's less than 5 lines, only one question per post, and that it is actually a question. If you put comments in, we'll dismiss them. If you put multiple questions into one question, we'll dismiss it. If you put long questions in, we'll dismiss it. So we're pretty just kind of like, there's a lot of questions right now. We have more questions than we can answer. So in 1 hour, so we need to kind of follow that structure to make it work. And so you need to kind of follow that process if you're going to put them in. If there's a bunch of questions in there and you really want to make sure that certain ones get asked, vote on them. There's 243 people here right now. There are 15 questions. There should be like 10 votes for every one of them, or 20 votes for some of them. So get in there, be proactive, and make sure that we're asking the questions that you want to hear. We try to get to all the questions, but in the last 15 minutes, we do kind of the speed round where we move through them very quickly, sometimes in one sentence answers. So just note that as we move through it. Of course, you can keep chatting amongst yourselves with the chat below. So if you put stuff in the chat, we're not going to really generally talk about it in the actual panel. That we're really just managing the Q&A, but you're more than welcome to chat amongst yourself. You'll see people putting in links and so on and so forth. So there is that's kind of the overall, to give you a view of how this all works. Today, we have a second hour. Every day we have a second hour, or almost every day. Today, Nick Justishin is going to be talking about how to turn lots of photos of teams, high school teams or college teams into trading cards. And this is really talking about process and automation of how to do that without killing yourself. You could do it by hand, but that would take a long time. So Nick's going to show you how to do it a little faster. So he's going to talk about that in the second hour. That's from 8 to 9. Tomorrow, Jeffrey Powers is going to talk about Wirecast. So a lot of people in our group are using Wirecast for their broadcasts. And so he's going to talk about how he uses it, what he likes about it, and answer your questions about Wirecast. Now, Saturday is the long day. Saturday, we do 7 hours. So we open the doors at 6. We do 2 hours of Q&A. And then at 9, Nick Justishin again is going to be back, and he's going to talk about Unreal. Steve Bays is going to talk about deep cuts in Final Cut, and he's the guy to know. So, as a reminder, just so you know, that Steve Bays is like watching our Discord right now. As soon as this whole COVID thing starts to slow down, he's going to have to go back to his regular life. If you ever wanted to ask a question about Final Cut, this is used to be the senior product manager for Final Cut. So this is like the best place in the world to ask questions about Final Cut. Eric Gollner is going to talk about building templates for broadcast, for live graphics for broadcast at 11. And then Aaron Mailer is going to answer your questions about networking at 12. So that's our Saturday. It's, again, a long day. Sunday is just another 2 hours of Q&A. It's a little bit slower, oftentimes a little bit more philosophical, as we just kind of think about the last week and kind of clean it all up. So that's our schedule. And without further ado, we're going to have Chris kick it off with some questions. Chris, what do you got?
Good morning, Alex. With a clear, decisive lead in terms of the thumbs up, remember to do that if you want to get a question answered. If you had to ship one light to a remote presenter, what would it be?
We've used a lot of different ones, and we've kind of centered around a 16 or 18-inch ring light. It's kind of like the all-in-one, like if I'm going to send something to someone, that's what I'm going to do. It can be put up as a key light. It can be put centered with their webcam in the middle of it. It can or a phone or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways of using it, and so we kind of lean towards that. And Guy, how much are the ring lights? What are the ones that you guys sell?
We have two brands. One is Prismatic, and the other one's Devo Ring Light. Those are the two that we actually manufacture. We have manufactured in China and then brought over. But there's lots on the market now.
There's lots on the market. And yours, and how large are yours?
We have a 14-inch. We have a 10-inch. We have and then the 18 is the most popular. Yeah,
18 is kind of the 18-inch ones are the ones that we see that are the most popular among YouTubers, TikTokers. I mean, I think what's also happened with it is some people complain about the highlight on people's eyes as far as being a ring. But the reality is it's become, kind of a known look, among Instagrammers, YouTubers, TikTokers. And so it's literally kind of a look that is relatively accepted at this point. And so that's why we've kind of moved towards supporting those. And maybe a Guy, we can get you to put a link into the 18-inch that you guys have, just so in the chat so that we can, so people know where to find it. But that's what I'd recommend. Next question.
Sorry.
Oh, did anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped into that. Did anyone else have any? I'm just waiting. If you're in the panel, if I'm talking, you disagree with me, then you can't do it with your phone because I can't. That doesn't look like a hand to me.
No. Well, I had the hand. The phone is because I just bought the 18-inch. If you want to see what they look like.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, and it has an app that automatically can do all different kinds of colors. It's kind of scary, the ability that this machine has.
So this is the one we were just talking about? This is the light that we were just talking about?
Yeah, the Prismatic. I just bought it on Monday. I plugged it in, and it's got an app to play with.
Sky, you're looking so much better now. You're just like, it's coming together. You're getting all pro.
I blame, thank you. And I'll get a haircut soon.
Very good. Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, if you're looking for something even smaller and even more portable, LoomCube sells the video conference lighting for remote working. That's what they call their kit. It comes with the LoomCube Mini, which is USB-C powered as well as battery operated. So you can just keep it plugged in or run it off of the battery. And it comes with a nice little suction cup mount. So you can like mount it to the back of a laptop lid or an iPad. So if you're doing a FaceTime or a Zoom, I'm actually using it right now. I just have it on the back of my monitor here. And it's smaller than a typical smartphone. So super small, super portable. You should see it on their site. Yeah, you have it up now. If you go to...
Can you turn it on and off just so we have a comparison?
Yeah, sure.
As to the diffusion on those things, it seems
it comes with it comes with a diffuser actually. So if I turn it off,
and the only thing I'll say about and I have a LoomCube and I've got a couple other small cubes, and I love using them as lights. They feel a little news cammy to me because news cams have like the little lights, and so it's a little sourcey. And so what I like about bigger light sources is that it kind of fills in all of our imperfections and is a better general light. So, but I do think that I carry actually I think I carry the Joby version of the LoomCube, but a little one in my bag. Actually, I have a couple of them. They come with little arms that you can use, and I carry. That's kind of when I'm traveling and I need a light. It is something that I use the smaller ones. If you're going to send something to someone, generally, unless you know what they look like, I would get a larger source. And again, like an 18-inch is going to give you this nice big source. The bigger that source is against the person, generally, the better they're going to look. So that's the thing to kind of keep in mind is the little sources tend to not be tends to be a little bit more sourcey and tends to pick up a lot more detail. Sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not. Jeffrey, we're going to keep moving forward. Go ahead, Jeffrey, and then we're going to move on.
Side question, if you don't have time to send a light to somebody, is there a recommendation where you say, go down to Home Depot and get this specific light?
Chris Summers has a good hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Just get a 60 or 100 watt tungsten bulb and a China ball. They're at IKEA and most builders.
China balls are pretty useful. Yeah. And you can order, if you want to drop ship something from Amazon, they have these 125 watt giant coiled CFLs, which from a color perspective lean towards green a little bit. So you have to let the camera auto correct for it, but they're super bright and you put them inside of a China ball and it gets big and soft really fast. So yeah, China balls that's a great suggestion from Chris. Yeah, that's a Sky showing a smaller version of that. But the China balls are a great in between to do it, and we built really big ones. Those a big soft light is a key to the operation. Okay, next question.
Victor just got Davinci Resolve. What are the 3 things he should learn about first in getting started using it?
Chris, comfort.
They by default stores the project files in its own secret directory. I'm used to most of the software that I use, like Reaper, Cubase, even Vegas. You could save the project file with the raw footage if you wanted to. So just know where that folder is and either direct it from the beginning through the preferences to a place you want it, or just remember to back that folder up also. The other thing is that it'll do the cache, like especially if you have Fusion clips, it's like almost like it's After Effects built into it. It's their version of After Effects, and that will fill up whatever scratch disk it's going on to pretty quickly. It doesn't hurt anything, but it went onto my system disk, and I just kind of left it there because it's my fastest drive on my machine. But you just have to empty that out every so often, and just bulk empty it.
Go ahead, Victor. You want to expound on your question?
Just Chris, it sounds like I can map that cache or the other drive to any external drive I want.
I believe so. Just make sure, especially the cache, you want to have it on a really fast drive because it's going to be streaming from that drive just like your footage would be.
Appreciate it.
Fenwick and then George, and then we'll move on.
As with any edit system, you always want to keep track of where things are getting cached and stored. And also, Ripple Training has starter training on Resolve. You may want to look at that. Their training is spot on.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with that. Go ahead, George.
So Victor, as everyone said, just keep I pretty much work on external drives, but if you really want to get up and running with Resolve, I know Ripple have a lot of content, but if you go to the Blackmagic website, to the Resolve page, there is hours and hours of training, and you could jump right into that.
That's great. There you go. Next question.
Jeffrey Reyes says, Alex, how important do you think it is to learn software that runs on both Mac and Windows versus a Mac-only app so that you don't get stuck on the Mac platform?
So I actually don't like cross-platform software on the Mac or the PC. I think that you're programming for at least lowest common denominator when you do that either way. I don't want, like people ask, like, I don't want vMix to move to the Mac. I don't want Final Cut or Motion to move to the PC. I don't like that because you always end up, the only app that I've seen that really works really well cross-platform. Some of the 3D apps work pretty well cross-platform, but a lot of these video ones, there's so many ways that the video works and everything else that I just feel you get kind of a lukewarm version of everything. So, I pick the things that I want to use, and I'm not a big cross-platform person. So, so I think you should write code that takes absolute access to the hardware and the And I've written, I haven't written, but we used to make lots of cross-platform software, and it's just a disaster. Like it's just from a coding perspective and a management perspective, it slows the entire development down. All the point ones and all the things that are up there. There's so many things that you're constantly dealing with when you want to deal with performance. Now, like the control app for the ATEM is fine because it's not doing very much. But when you really talk about real performance for video and audio apps, I'd rather have them just be one or the other. Fenwick and then Jason and then Sky.
If we were to parse what you just said, you started to say the only app and then your mind splintered off to another thought. You were about to say the only app that you think does a good job on both Mac and PC.
Cinema 4D. Okay. Cinema 4D does it really well. They've built their own package. Like it sits inside of their little coding and then just talks to the outside world. And so it does a pretty good job. They're German. It's like German engineering. It's like a BMW of, all the little code is all put exactly where it wants. I'm sure that they've got tons of little comments. And
what's that software again?
Cinema 4D is the 3D software that I use a lot. And so, and I think that it runs equally well. It'll take advantage of whatever hardware you give it really, really well. For instance, like a good example, like Maya doesn't work as well on the Mac. Like it's just, it isn't, it's not you can put it on the Mac, but it's not going to work as well. And that's what I get into is that, I'd rather have something that's written, in general, written for the hardware, written for the software, or the operating system. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, if you're doing this for money, learn the tool that's going to make you the most money and then suffer the consequences. Final Cut originally 7 was the best it ever got, but it was not a production tool at the beginning when all of the industry was forced to use it because the accountants were running it, the engineers were, and definitely not the users. But we all learned how to use it because that's what the tool we were forced to use. Premiere is the best in experience. You can go on a Windows machine, you can go on a Mac machine, and it's the same experience that I could get paid for inside. Or Avid.
I have to say, as a Final Cut user, I couldn't go back to Premiere. Like I open it up every once in a while. And
not now. No,
the world of hurt.
Yeah,
it's a world of hurt. Like it's just so slow. Like it's just so slow.
But
it's so slow.
It's so I went from house to house to house as a freelance, gunslinger. So that's I get it. You have to do that if you're doing that. My thing is that I try to find things that I'm pitching the project, and I'm not pitching what I'm going to do with it, how I'm going to do it. It's just like this is the end product that you're going to get, and then I can do it as fast as I choose your tool that's going to make you the most money.
Yep. Bill and Jason, and then we're moving to the next question.
Yeah, just real quickly, I think if your goal is to get a seat in somebody's shop, then having cross-platform chops is an incredibly powerful thing because it gives you a chance to work for more people. If you just want to get your own work done, I 100% agree with Alex. Find a tool that resonates with you and dominate that tool so that you can get the tool out of the way and get to the work.
Right.
Like a musician.
Yep. No, absolutely. Jason?
More of the same. Hone your craft first. And if you're working for yourself, no one's ever going to make you use a tool.
Right. Next question.
Let's see. Kevin McCardle says, what dedicated hardware encoder would you recommend in the mid-range? Thinking Osprey Talent Pro, Clearcaster, etc. Something that can do a few protocols.
The one that that we're ramping up on, of course, is the Elemental Link, but we're using that in conjunction with AWS. In fact, Marty, I don't know if he's here today, but Marty is going to be using it he's doing some heavy testing for me today in a high school graduation. The San Rafael high school graduations are all going to be run off of 2 links, and some of them are multi-language, and so it's a little R&D thing for us tomorrow and Saturday. So so we're ramping those up, and I like them a lot because I don't have to think about it. You just plug them in, and they show up in AWS, and then you start passing them off to wherever you want to. For a mid-range, for that less than $6,000, I guess is what I would consider mid-range. The Clearcaster is amazing. The Clearcaster that has been built out, it started off as a Facebook-only protocol, but now it is something that can stream to a lot of different services, and up to 4K currently. Evidently, there's possibilities of having more headroom than that, but right now up to 4K. So the Clearcasters are an incredible value for a 4K delivery as well as a 1080p delivery, and they just attach. They're using the API connections to a lot of these, so you can use them to connect to YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn tends to be one of the harder ones to get connected to with a lot of the hardware, and because it doesn't have an RTMP input. So those are a bunch of the pieces that are there. So I would probably lean towards a Clearcaster. If I didn't get a link and didn't want to deal with AWS, then a Clearcaster is probably the solution that I'd be looking close to. Any other options for people? Hardware encoders. Yeah, go ahead, Leland.
I would just throw in probably the High Vision Makito, the X4, the Blade, some of their, you get it on a
How much are those?
price scale. They range anywhere from 5 to 12, depending on what you're trying to find. So there's several models out there you can look into. But
I think they're a little high for their. I just feel like the Makitos are a little expensive for what they provide.
They probably are.
so that, they're nice and small. The Makitos are really nice, and we've seen them in a lot of places where they need to be compact. But I feel like as they are truly a hardware encoder, which is that they are just chips, and low level. And so there's some advantages of that, but there's not nearly as much flexibility in their ingest, but they are, and we've had them and they definitely work. I just feel like they're a little, they're just a lot less flexible, for the price. I think that if they were and then the other one to look at, by the way, is the Videon. Videon makes, mid-range hardware encoders. If you're looking at a Makito, the Videon is going to be similar in its set, but about half the cost. Anyway, so next question.
Hasmek is using a Scarlett Solo for his Samsung SE10T mic. I think he's trying to get some justification for buying the Mix Pre 3 too. He wants to know if he thinks he's going to get a big improvement, and I think he wants somebody to tell him it's okay to spend the money.
It's okay. You can buy one. Anyway, Jeff, what were we going to say?
I would think he would get more improvement if he switches his mic first. Spend the money to get a DPA or Countryman headset.
Yeah, I would. I mean, the first thing that is going to make the biggest difference in your sound will be a DPA. And I'm using a 4066, which I really like the sound of. There's the 4166, which is the newer capsule. I do recommend with the DPAs. I'm not super excited about the directional DPAs. I really like the Omni as far as how it sounds. It is much less. I don't have it all set up today, but on another day, if you ask that again, I'll compare. I'll just do both of them over Zoom. The hard part was I can turn on original sound and try to get it to you, but I've got so much stuff going on in between. I don't know if you'll hear that much difference between the two over Zoom, but you definitely will in the recordings. And maybe if someone reminds me, I'll post a recording between the two, because I have a Samsung 10T here and the obviously and the DPA, and I can kind of compare and contrast those two. But the Samsung is not nearly as bright. The dynamic range is not nearly as good, and it's also noisier. Now, for $100, it's the best choice. So I will say that the Samsung is the best headset mic at $100. There's a lot of other ones that are cheaper and around and everything else. But they're really bad. And so the Samsung is a big jump up, and we use them to send to people when we don't have a budget to go higher. But it's not the same as the DPA. So I think that would be the first thing that I would do. If you ever think you want to record in the field, obviously a Mix Pre 3 is going to get you a lot more. And the fact that Mix Pre 3 2 is going to have 32-bit float, so you can make a lot of mistakes in the field and still get your audio out. Tucker?
Yeah, I just want to second the thought of, if you are going to record in the field, is kind of a big switch between whether to use a audio interface or a field recorder that happens to have that ability.
And the other thing is having a rock solid double end record as well. So if you're what I like about Mix Pre's is that I can have someone just hit record, and we're all recording clean files before they got to the computer. If there was any issue with the computer, any other whatever, you still have your file. So that's another, piece of that puzzle. Any other comments there? Okay, next question.
Kenny Hampton says a lot of people use cell phones as their cameras for online live interaction. For the viewer, oftentimes the image appears reversed, obvious by writing on clothing and stuff in the background. Why does this happen, and what is the process to correct the orientation? It always surprises me. I understand why people do it for while you're shooting, the combing your hair thing you've mentioned. But I can't believe Snapchat just doesn't reverse it when they send it back out.
Yeah, so I think that, yeah, and to get to what Chris is talking about is I believe that what's happening there is that you are, if you're using your self camera, it's flipping it for you, and then a lot of the services don't flip it back on the way back out again, so you get everything reversed. If you use the front-facing camera, it won't be reversed. So it's just taking a lot of these are taking just what they get. They're like, oh, we made a call to the camera gave us video, and we sent it out, rather than doing any process, a little bit of thinking on that process. The same thing you have with Zoom. Like, one of the places that Zoom falls down is that Zoom just takes the full aperture of what it's getting from an iPad or iPhone and just pushes it out into the thing, where what it should do is it should scale horizontal to, if it's in landscape, it should scale horizontal to the width and cut off the top and bottom. And, basically, which is what Skype does, it's what FaceTime does, is it doesn't give you black bars. And Zoom is just grabbing the raw sensor and sending it out, as opposed to just scaling to the width of the image and then scaling that out, which would make a lot more sense. And so that's but that's just them. The software manufacturers could very quickly, all these different clients could very quickly make that adjustment. They're not. Joseph?
Yeah, both Zoom and WebEx have a little checkbox that you can enable that just flips your video or mirrors your video. So if you're finding that your video is being flipped by Zoom or WebEx,
and you're able to do that in the phone, you can do it in the software. You can do it in the software here. I don't think that I don't know. I see. So the phone has a lot less tools, and I think that's the issue. Is the phone has less tools to work with. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, there's also, this is kind of in the realm of a thing in video directing called crossing the line. When you think about it, if you're standing on stage or you're in the audience, if I'm on stage and I'm moving to the right, the audience sees me moving to the left, and vice versa. So this is a whole thing about how you kind of process direction through cameras, and most of these webcams are across the line.
Yeah, and again, the main thing is that it's mostly so I can do this. Like, it's like if I do my hair, you'd be surprised if you look at a video. So I have a video over here, and I have to go like this and remember which way I'm going to straighten my hair. But it really is. I mean, we talked to someone who, not at Zoom, but another company years ago, about, why do you guys do the whole mirroring thing? And so it was literally so people can fix their hair without making them mess. Like, it literally came down to people get really confused about fixing their hair when they don't have a mirror. Go ahead, Joseph, and then we'll move on.
Oh, sorry, am I first or?
You go.
Yep. You can do it, at least on Zoom on the phone. I just checked. They have a mirror in my video little thing,
Perfect.
So that'll just take care of it. Done.
Some have it, some don't, but that's good. Kudos to Zoom for having that. Okay, next question.
Pardon my Dutch is no good, but I believe it's Wouter. Interesting question. Title CG software with an NDI output for doing a live broadcast. He says he tested a few of them. They weren't that good, not very professional. Price range between $500-$1,500. He's hoping that maybe somebody makes something with like a professional light version, but he's looking for a CG software with NDI output.
I think that MIDI has that. Go ahead, Tucker.
We use vMix in line with our Blackmagic stuff, and so we'll use vMix with their title designer. It has the ability to bring in data sources and things like that, and you can output a single key fill for letting vMix.
And is that the lowest version?
I mean, we're on the top version, but I don't know. I mean, between the $500 and $1,500 range, the highest price point vMix license fits within that. I don't know about the lower versions, but I think it's still there.
One thing is if you're on the Mac, or if you're looking at the Mac, MIDI does do NDI output. So MITTI does NDI output as well. So that's another option. It's $300, and you can try it for 20 minutes for free. 20 minutes ongoingly, but it'll stop after 20 minutes. And if your show is only 20 minutes long, or you're willing to restart the app, you can use it forever. Anyway, Leland.
Just for confirmation on the vMix, the GT Designer, the simple titler is available on all versions, but if you want the advanced version of GT titler, that comes in at the second to the highest tier. The other one would be the NewTek Titler 6 or 7 should be out by now, which is a standalone product as well. It's probably $100 to $200 depending. I'm going to go take a look.
Okay.
I'll just mention that. I'll just mention that Unreal does it. I don't know if the NDI plugin works on both Mac and PC, but I do know on the PC side, Unreal for free NDI plugin will input and output to NDI.
And one of the things that folks should know within this group is that we are quickly moving towards a world where we're going to be testing Unreal as our graphics engine. So we're kind of talking about it, and Nick is doing lots of introductions on Saturdays. But the thing to definitely know is that we're kind of moving towards, using Unreal for 2D graphics, 3D graphics, backgrounds, because it's free. It's really pretty easy to use. And so, definitely come on Saturdays to kind of get up to speed on some of those things because we're going to keep on moving down that path. Jason, and then we're going to move on.
A small aside for MIDI. MIDI works with my very favorite open source clock, which is Clock 8001. They actually added the functionality to sync the clock with playback. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Just works over the network. It's beautiful.
That's great. Next question.
Jordan says he's considering buying a Tascam DR05X digital audio recorder. He wants to know if we have any suggestions for a $100 portable audio recorder.
Zoom.
I don't recommend that one. Sorry.
Zoom X4 or Zoom X2, whichever it is.
Or how much are the Zooms?
The Zoom Twin Jogger, I believe. Let's see. Nope, that's not it. That's the wrong Zoom. If you can find them on Sweetwater.
In that range, I would probably lean towards a Zoom. In that $100 range, plus or minus, I think $50. Zoom is gonna be probably a better solution there, Chris.
Yeah,
your phone.
Someone in
your phone interface. I mean, like literally an interface for your phone is not a bad solution.
Yeah, the memo tool in your phone for sure. Good point.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Chris.
Someone in the chat was mentioning Zoom versus Tascam recorders. I've got the Zoom H4n, and it can also be used it has a microphone besides the recording, but it could also be used as a USB microphone, whereas the Tascams don't have that functionality. Just thought that might be useful for that question.
Yeah, I kind of see Tascam as kind of last gen. Like I have to admit, like they had their moment, but they're not really. I wouldn't invest in that direction. Yashai, and then Victor, and then Elaine. And then
if somebody's using a lavalier for recording, Apogee have a special lavalier that they kind of jointly designed it with Sennheiser. They have two flavor, one for I think like 209 for 400. And if you have, with the iPhone, you can use Twisted Wave, which is an awesome software for recording and on the fly editing. And Apogee have the.
And I would really, I definitely would really think about, if you're looking at that cost effectiveness, is thinking about whether it's your iPhone or a Samsung or whatever, is thinking about an interface for that. If you're really trying to keep it efficient and get high quality, you're going to get more quality out of a good interface into your phone than you will out of a standalone recorder at $100.
Take it to Dropbox right away from there.
Okay, 15 seconds, Victor, and Elaine, and then we're going to move on.
If you're budget minded, don't discard going to some place like Reverb. Usually the shops there and the people here have a really good return policy. Save yourself some money.
Elaine, and then we'll move on.
The only thing I found with the Zoom that was an issue is we used to use them quite a bit through interview and stuff like that. Their button break really quickly. So we went to the Tascam, and they were good for that. The DR40, I got 3 or 4 left. And then the Roland, but they're more like $250 to $300. But they pay once or pay twice, right? You buy the good thing. I've always believed that you pay it now, or you pay it later.
Well,
so I know you. Yeah.
And also think about how you're going to use it. I can keep a lot of things alive because I'm super careful about how I take care of them. So, we can probably have a whole second hour about how we take care of our gear. But if you're handing out to somebody else, you got to be worried about it.
Sometimes.
Yeah, volunteers. Yeah. If you have volunteers, then it's going to be more problematic. But remember, if you're managing a staff, is to train people to have what we call soft hands, which is that you don't bang things, you don't push things hard, you don't set them down hard. You don't, like all of that stuff. And then the other thing is we don't put any hard surfaces next to each other when we pack. So there's soft things in between everything, so that they're not rattling against each other, which is, and banging into each other. Soft. Really thinking about that. I have to admit, my first job out of high school was shipping and receiving for an electronics company. So I am crazy about that, you know, because it would be like back in the 80s, if I packed something wrong, it would be a $20,000 mistake. And so, you know, I think about all those things about metal going up against each other, about plastic going up against anything hard. I don't have anything hard going up against each other when I pack, you know, and thinking about what is banging up against your stuff and packing things too tight. Those are all things you can take something that has relatively fragile setups and last for a long time but you have to really, it takes a culture within, you know, and volunteers is the hardest culture because they're moving through and they're not getting paid and everything else. But it's worth continuing to have that conversation over and over and over. Okay, next question.
Yeah. Good segue to the next question. Just Emmanuel is, he wants our thoughts on the Blackmagic ATEM Production 4K, Hyperdeck, Studio Pro, and Videohub as far as quality, longevity, and volunteer friendliness, including fan noise levels. It's for a church. He's the main tech guy, but he's also working with volunteers.
Yeah, so I will say that I think that Blackmagic is one of the easiest software, one of the easiest switchers and easiest pieces of hardware to train newbies on. You know, so if you're going to bring somebody in, I can literally get them operational in an hour or two, whereas a lot of the other ones have a lot of other things. It's just very visual. The software is really strong. It's easy to set up. It's easy for you to jump into from somewhere else if you need to fix something. So, you know, I'm a big fan of it because of that. And I will say flat out that I've had lots and lots of switchers, Sony switchers and DataVision switchers and, you know, all kinds of other switchers. And now I only have Blackmagic switchers, you know, so as far as hardware goes, because the interaction between the Blackmagic, the Hyperdeck, the cameras, it's, you know, the all that stuff is an ecosystem that once you start getting into, it's really hard to find another solution at the same price point that will get anywhere near what you can do with Blackmagic hardware. And so that's from a hardware perspective, that becomes a pretty key set of solutions as far as making all of that work. It has an open API, so if you start getting geeky, you can do a lot of things. One thing to look at for volunteers is also for surfaces. There's a company called Scarhoy that is, they make lots and lots of little custom surfaces that are all different sizes and everything else. And you can, you know, customize how you have it, how you put it in front of people so they're only hitting what they need to. John Idelson and then Sky.
Yeah, I'm becoming the fan of the Mini, but in our parks, remote studios, we have a lot of roll-in equipment, and it stands up very well, and it's easy for us to train interpreters who are not really video friendly. So, but
and what I look at is I look at where I'm going to grow to. You know, so the thing is that the roll-ins are, I think, I think that you're right. In the field, I think the roll-ins can be a good solution. I think that the thing that I look at is, well, when I want to shade cameras, am I able to get a camera that I can easily shade with the roll-in? Am I going to be able to tie it to Hyperdecks? Am I going to be able to have, you know, the routers, you know, having all of that in one ecosystem? Now, there is a little bit of fan noise. You do want to, you know, I don't know if I put it in the same place that I'm having the service, but there is a little bit of fan noise, but you can get a case for that, you know, that will cut down on that a lot. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, I'm also a fan of the ATEM Mini, but I'm already training people in my church group, and the prosumer HDMI and the USB-C are not, they just keep falling out. And so we're going to gaff tape the crap out of it.
I mean, this is a question about the 4ME. So this is a bigger switcher with SDI and everything else. What I would recommend is if you're going to go down the path of the 4ME is, if you can, go down the camera path as well, you know, and get Blackmagic cameras, because being able to shade your camera and even, especially when you're doing volunteers, if their focus isn't quite right, from the switcher, you can go, oh, I'm just going to tune the focus a little bit. And you can actually change the focus on the lenses from the camera, which is useful. So anyway, those are my opinions there. Go ahead, next question, or our opinions.
Yeah. Dave Miller says, by the way, Alex, your lighting looks great today. Should a lighting and equipment cage be built with electrical conduit or black pipe? I think he's talking about building just a place to lock stuff up. Sounds like.
Yeah. So I could tell you how not. To lock stuff up. Oh, electrical.
Doesn't say lock. He doesn't say lock stuff up, but that's what I'm reading into it. Should a lighting and equipment cage be built with electrical conduit or black pipe? That's what it sounds like to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, yeah. So we'll answer that question two different ways.
Ceiling grid. I think he's talking about ceiling grid.
If he's talking about a ceiling grid, okay, Dave. If you're talking about a ceiling grid, we'll just talk about that. I can tell you what what not to do that I've done recently. In fact, it's still here, but I'm in the process of getting rid of it. Is hold on, let me. Let's see.
I'm continually amazed, Alex, how many things are within arm's reach of your seat.
I've been doing this for a little while. It's easy. So anyway, so this is what not to do. This is piping that I built a grid on when I was just kind of throwing this together. And so I have a lot of stuff. I have been able to hang all these lights on it. I have another light here. I have cameras that are kind of hidden into this. There's one of the little micros.
Are you screwed into the ceiling, or do you have?
No. It's on. There's one of the C stands. So there's 4 C stands that I had laying around, and then those C stands have this grid that I built with just plumbing that I bought at the hardware store as I was hacking it together. The problem with the plumbing when you build a grid is it's threaded. So you have to thread it all the way in on one side, then you half thread it out as you thread it into the other connector if you want to have it actually go across. And so that becomes kind of it's not super stable.
You should be using U-clamp plates.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's that's kind of my hacked version of it, and I wouldn't recommend it. What I'm about to do is get the real answer to that is speed rail. So, the proper solution is speed rail. So the speed rail itself is not that expensive. The Hollander connectors can start to add up, but I would recommend speed rail. I'm going to be swapping this all out in the next couple weeks too. I'm hopefully moving. We'll find out soon. Hopefully moving this out of my house and into an office in the next couple weeks. And when I do that, I will. Well, I actually have beams where I'm looking at it, and it's a very storied location. So if it all works out, I'll give you guys a tour of the new space. It's going to be slick. Anyway, so when I do that, I'm going to go back to speed rail.
It's going to make your 6 a.m. commute brutal.
You're going to be commuting.
I'm going to have to go 15 minutes to San Rafael to a place called 30. Yeah. So it's going to be good.
I know where you're going.
so anyway, we're talking about it. I'm trying to figure out if that's going to work. So anyway, it'll be good for all of us for me to move, and I'm willing to take the hit so that we have access to a good space. Anyway, John Edelson and Chris, and then we'll move on. Oh, and then Chris Frishy, and then Chris Summers, and then we'll move on.
I put a link in the chat called Maker Pipe, and it lets you put connectors together using electrical conduit, and you can build almost anything. And electrical conduit's easy to find.
I'll check that out because what I have is a disaster. Anyway, so Chris, go ahead. Next, Chris Frishy, and then Chris Summers. Oh, I can't hear you, Chris.
He's been having some trouble.
Okay, Chris Summers.
Just with any overhead rigging of any sort, whether it's a camera, a light, electrical cable, safety cables, and make sure that you have safeties on there. If it comes down on your head or on the floor, you could be losing your own life or your property.
You will notice that when I don't know if you noticed it or not, but there's nothing directly over my head. And I do have safety connections to this grid. Although I'm more worried about the whole grid coming down right now than the individual lights. But definitely as you connect those,
living on San Andreas Fault.
And a lot of these lights, the lights that I got here, these NAND lights actually came with little safety. They come with little safety hooks and pieces with it, so that it's there. But definitely cameras, everything. You definitely want to be conscious. I will admit, as I build things, I tend to not build anything, even with a safety cable, because it might swing when it comes off. Even with a safety cable, I tend not to put anything directly over my head, unless I do a lot of extra work. I mean, there's actors who have lost their careers or at least been sidelined for half a year, by just getting hit by a light. So it's definitely something that is a big deal to think about. Okay, next question.
William,
we're going into the speed round, so we're going to start answering things really quickly.
Boy, here we go.
If I come to you in the panel, just know if I come to you in the panel, keep it to like 30 seconds. So really have and what I request for the panelists right now, and I would do this the whole time, is look at the next question that's high there and think about if you want to answer that, and get your hand up quickly when the question's asked, and but try to keep your answers to 30 seconds or less. Anyway, keep going.
William wants to know, he's planning an event for 30. First of all, he says, thank you for all this. He's planning an event for 30,000 people that's not open to the public, yet he's broadcasting it to the US, Canada, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. Can he play popular music? He does pay royalties to BMI and ASCAP.
The only thing I'd say is that streaming royalties and performance royalties, I mean, and like live performance royalties in locations are very different. You absolutely can play those if you use some kind of whitelist that is not, you're exposing yourself to, a bunch of licensing issues, but you want to research the difference between webcasting licensing and, location performance licensing, which is ASCAP and BMI may not cover what you're trying to do. And so you want to kind of think about that. Now, I will say that we're in kind of a wild and woolly thing right now where you may, if you do it a one-off, you're probably not going to, someone's probably not going to come knocking on your door. But you do want to be conscious of the fact that you're legally exposing yourself when you do that. And you want to really look at web licensing for those, for that stream. Definitely don't put it on a public CDN. So don't put it on stuff like Facebook or YouTube or, a lot of those they have, because of their agreements with the record companies, they may cut your stream short, in the middle of it. Although YouTube for the most part has stopped doing that, where it doesn't cut you short. It just grabs onto you right after the event ends. But I would be careful of that because it can. And so, and it depends on how long the song goes. So if you do, I think that the observation is less than 5 minutes. You're probably not going to get cut off, but you are going to get it locked afterwards. And so you just want to kind of be conscious of that. Go ahead, Bill, and then Sky really quickly, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, real quick. The difference between performance rights, synchronization rights, which is generally putting your music into something and then web rights. That's the tangle here.
Yep.
It's hard.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Sky?
YouTube was what shut us down Sunday morning because we were playing a feature film.
Yes. Yeah. Anything like that, anything that's going to go longer than 5 minutes, you're gonna probably have YouTube will probably actually turn it off. If it's under 5 minutes, it will. And it really depends on the copyright holder. And what you can do is you can take that music. If you're going to try to do it to YouTube, you can actually play that music into YouTube as an unlisted event and just see what it does. Do it on a test. Don't use your own account that you like, but do it on. You build a test account and I have 20 test accounts, and so I have lots of test accounts on YouTube, and I play it out of one of them, and I'll play all the songs that I'm planning to play to see what they're going to do, because the copyright holder could have said block it, they could say monetize it, or they could say track it, and so they may choose to do nothing. Like if you do a Katy Perry, thing or whatever, she's going to just track it because she's cool, and so Taylor Swift will do the same thing. But if you do, the Rolling Stones, they're going to block you, and so you just have to understand, how the artists manage that and playing it in. If you play it into private, it doesn't go through that system, so you won't be able to test it in YouTube. You have to do it through unlisted. Anyway, next question.
Back to Amsterdam. Any suggestions for a 24/7 playout software for one channel? This is a local broadcast station. We want to plan the episodes, no fancy options needed like character generator, and we need it to support SDI in and out.
Softron.tv. That's the.
Is that your speed round answer?
That's my speed round answers. There's a bunch of them. There's Just Live is also another one, but for the price and performance and the control on, I guess on a Mac. I don't know the PC solutions, but on a Mac, Softron.
And it has SDI in and out?
You can have those features in it. Yep. You can replay, you can do graphics, you can do all kinds of things with it. Yep. Next question.
Colin Sandy says,
Sorry,
how do I...
me. Can somebody post the link for that software in the chat?
Yeah. Softron.tv, but go ahead and put it in the link. There it is. Next question.
Colin Sandy says, how can I do an audio only stream from Zoom to a CDN and embed the audio only?
We're working on this. I don't have a solid solution for it, but I'm planning to put this show in July into an audio only service. And I I haven't picked which one. There's the older ones. There's the ones that have been around for a long time, Icecast and a variety of other ones, but I haven't decided what we're going to do there yet. Jason?
Audio Hijack does it.
Okay, well, it does it, but you have to figure out how the whole pipeline, like how does someone actually watch it? Audio Hijack will do something like that, but then you need to figure out where are they going to go and where is that at reside? And if you have 1,000 people or 5,000 people listening, you don't want to come back to your computer.
The question is about the server. Sorry.
Right, server. There's a lot of things that will stream out the audio, but you have to figure out how you're gonna do that. Go ahead, Jan.
I think Libsyn would work for you. LYP. I'll put a link. Libsyn.
Does Libsyn do live audio? They do podcasting. I don't think Libsyn does live. I think they're just podcasting. So what we're looking for here is a live audio output. And so let's move on to the next question.
Vito wants to know, what is the best run of show software?
There's different kinds of shows. So, there's ShowFlow for the events. If you're at an event, ShowFlow is probably the leader in that area now. And then there's Rundown Creator for shows. So if you're doing a 1 hour show, Rundown Creator has a lot of us do it in, Google Docs. So people build them up, but the advantage that you have with Rundown Creator is you can connect scripts and it'll keep track of your time, and it will, you can set up breaks and you can do a lot more there. So Rundown Creator is a pretty solid solution, I think, for individual shows, a 1 hour show, 2 hour show, whereas ShowFlow is really designed for an event. It's going to tie in all the teams for those. And Brian, you were nodding your head.
Yeah, I've used that for live events, and it's very handy because everybody's device can just be open and the queues just update, and yeah, it's
and you can separate it out so that the audio folks see only their cues, the camera operators see only their cues. Everybody, you can break it out where it's all going. You're going from cue to cue to cue to cue to cue, but individuals aren't having to look at everything that's going on. And that's the problem when you build your own spreadsheet, is that doesn't really exist, or they're looking at some piece of paper. So ShowFlow has done a lot, in that area, and Rundown Creator for individual shows. And we've used both of those together at times. When we're running a studio, it's running on, Rundown Creator, and then we're running an event, it can be on ShowFlow. So you can actually, I don't integrate them together, but I'm saying that they're not competitors, they're theoretically complementary. Next question.
Did anyone ever use Levelator? What is the replacement now that Catalina's lack of 32-bit software finally broke it?
Bill?
Yeah, everybody's sad that Levelator's gone. It was a one-trick pony, but it did that trick brilliantly. You just toss an audio file on it, and it would brick wall maximize everything fast, and it sounded good. It was built for radio. Now, the Klein Friend, I'm pronouncing that horribly, has software that will do, in fact, a lot of the high-end audio things do it. Also, Crumble Pop does a small one for Mac that I've been fiddling around with to replace that, and it works pretty well.
John and then Victor, try to keep it to 15 seconds.
We're using it for a program for teacher training, and we have it up in the cloud. But Bruce Sharpie is the person who created it. He also did Pluralize. We should just reach out to him. He lives in British Vancouver, and we maybe can convince him to do a new version. It's a great program. We love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Victor?
Check out Isotope RX Elements, $99, many times on sale. Much more than just levelating pops, over modulated audio.
Perfect. Next question.
Neil Goldstein in Tel Aviv says, are there any issues I should be aware of when setting up a Berhinger SD8 Stage Box to an X32 rack? The Berhinger tutorial seems too simple to be true.
Brian, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, it actually is really simple. If you run into any roadblocks, ping me on Discord and I'll help you walk through it. But
I think the only thing is it doesn't run over you don't run it through routers. It's a direct connection, right? You need a direct connection between Ethernet connection between the two. You can't run it through route. I think that'd be my only thing.
Yeah, it's not Ethernet, so it runs through the AES 50 port. It's strictly point to point. So it's not an Ethernet, it's not a network, it's none of those things. But basically, if you follow the quick start guide and do exactly what it says, sound will go exactly where they say it's going to go. If you want to do something creative, then ping me and I can help you do more creative stuff with it.
Awesome. Next question.
Tom Rose says, what are some options for simultaneously streaming of a single source to 2 different YouTube live stream channels? I'm using Wirecast as my encoder.
So the only thing I'll say about that really quickly, and someone else can raise their hand, but the one thing to be careful of and I've done many multi-point streams in Wirecast, actually, but you want to be careful of your CPU usage on your computer. So you can start adding these streams and doing more than your computer is capable of. But Wirecast, you can definitely set up multiple outputs. You just keep on setting up outputs and saying, I want this. Each one can be its own compression settings. It can be its own. The thing to know is that as you start to scale your show, so if you say scaling is what really nails your computer. And so you just have to be careful of, scaling shows for different things. But if you're not scaling and you're just passing that through to YouTube, you can, most modern computers can do 2, 3, 4 streams out of Wirecast without losing anything, but watch your CPU usage. So get it all on, get it all running. And I generally want to see on Wirecast 45 to 55% utilization with everything going, like where I've got headroom. If I go to 75%, I want to turn it off because I just think I'm going to lose frames. But Jason and then Jeffrey, and then we'll move on.
I mean, this is a one-trick pony, but it works every time. Restream.io, pay for it, and then your problem goes away with scaling. Assuming you can do one, you're set.
Yeah, that's another way to do it. And then the other thing that we're doing more and more of now is if you're going to do a lot of streams, Restream.io makes sense. If you're willing to do a little bit of groundwork, and we're going to bring the guys on from Elemental and AWS to talk about it, you can pass it through AWS where you just set up an account. It's going to cost you, $1 an hour to send it to an ingest. And so you have to look at the restream cost and then look at what you're willing to do to learn it. But I would highly recommend getting AWS into your workflow just so you understand it, because there's so much power there. That could all be yours if you just, for a very small amount of money. The more I dig into it, the more I get excited about, I could reroute all this stuff and do all these things, and I can build it up on my own. And it takes a while to get your head around it. And I'm going to be doing some videos on AWS along with the link. And then we're going to bring the Elemental guys in to really talk about that pipeline in the next couple weeks. So I would recommend that as well. Go ahead, Jeffrey, and then we'll move on.
Oh, I do a 24/7 streaming channel using Wirecast, and I used to do up to 4, going to YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and another one I can't remember. But I switched to Restream, just like Jason said. That's probably your best option right there.
Easiest turnkey is absolutely costs you a little bit of money per month to do that. What is it, like 150, 200 bucks a month? Is it something like that?
No, it's much less than that.
Oh, I guess I was paying that. I don't know why I was paying that. There was something I needed that required me to pay a bunch of money. So Restream.io in my head looks like $200 a month. So maybe I needed something there that was required. Next question.
I speak for everybody. Andrew Irwing says, thanks for hosting this. I agree. Have you had any experience with the Marantz Pro Turret? It's that little stand that has everything on it.
Guy?
Yeah, I have. I've played with it a little bit, and the issue. I mean, they're great for the value for the money, but the camera isn't that great. And then look at where your eye line goes. Like it's kind of funny in this picture here where they show it's probably hard to see for you guys, but she's looking at the computer and the image that they photoshopped in there is not where her eye line is. So you got to be careful. The light's not bright enough. The camera's subpar, but for an all-in-one bundle, it's pretty decent. But I mean, gosh, it's everything wrong that we're trying to fix here. So
yeah, it's it was on NEB, and I was so excited when I saw it. Go like, oh, finally I can just send something to clients that'll work. And I used it for like 5 minutes, and I was like, nope. I'd rather stick to cobbling things together. So that's been my experience as well. All right, next question.
Kevin Murphy says, I've used the Shot Designer on iPad. Any other must-have pre-production apps for planning that the panelists use?
Roscoe?
Yeah, I've got to make another pitch for Magic Cinema is what I use because it's the Blackmagic cameras, but they also make Magic for Nikons, Magic for RE, Magic. You got to go to your location and do pre-scouting. You got to take them pictures, and I also use Apple Notes because it works well for just jotting down stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hadn't heard about the Magic software before, and it's amazing. It's really cool. The other one that I use is Artemis, and I don't know if right now it says it's Artemis Legacy. I guess it just switched to anyway. So, but I use Artemis Pro. Or Artemis Pro. I haven't used it for a little while because I haven't had to do a bunch of shoots, but I use it all the time. And Artemis lets me pick my cameras and my framing and everything else, and then pick my zoom. So it's very much like the Blackmagic one. It's a lot more expensive than the Blackmagic one because it's really a lot of folks that I know use Artemis in the field to figure out their framing and everything else. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm boycotting Artemis and
really?
I've switched to cartridge. Yeah, because I had Legacy. I've been a customer of theirs since the beginning. But the new version, the Pro, is a little bit more expensive, and you have to have your microphone enabled on your phone. You can't use the app unless you have your microphone enabled, which I
Why
find
do they do that?
ridiculous. You have to ask them. But I have switched to an app called Cartridge, which is very good. It has all the same features, some even better, and it's half the price. I'll post a link. And one of the
Please
other
do.
things that I use a lot is called Sunseeker, which will track your sun, and you can use the live view on your camera, and you can roll back to a date. You can project a date 6 months in advance
great.
to a different location for your light planning.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to go to the last question. We got one question. We got 25 seconds. Can we do it?
This one's super easy. Derek Hirsch had to dip out of Chris's presentation yesterday. Wanted to know if he could get the keynote slides for himself to refresh.
I'm not going to promise anything there. We're going to ping Chris on Discord and see if what he wants to do. I'm not going to put him on the spot. So
Catch me on Discord.
We'll make that decision. Yeah, and absolutely.
That's a full lid. We're done.
Look at that. We did it. All right. So now we are shifting gears. We're going to have, so what we're talking about now is Nick Jushishin. Before he was the director of immersive at Drexel. He did a lot of things. But one of the things he did on the side was to do lots of photos for teams and put things together. And of course, Nick being Nick, he made it really fast and efficient and great, because that's what Nick does. And so, as he started to talk about this, he started talking about how to, he figured out how to automate huge amounts of the process of making trading cards. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have trading cards if your kids are going to Little League or your kids are doing those things? How do you build those trading cards, and how do you do it without doing it by hand? And so Nick is going to talk about that next. Before we get started,